Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome aboard. Welcome to the San Antonio River. Thank you for your patience while we got everything underway. My name is Captain Stu, and I'll be your captain as we head around the river today. We are heading off on a 2.5-mile trip around the inner part of the city, and that should take us about 30 minutes to get back to this point here. Now, I put a big disclosure on that. I am the only Australian riverboat captain here in San Antonio, and sometimes even though I've lived here for 20 years, I get lost on the river. So you may actually end up with a longer tour till I find my way back to where we started from. So I'll do my best to get back before breakfast tomorrow, if that's okay with you guys. So a couple of little things as we get going. Please no standing up or walking around on the boat. Please remain seated throughout the entire tour. And I'm going to suggest that you are very cautious of leaning over the side of the boat with your very expensive cell phone in case we bump into a whale or a submarine. I don't want to see your phone end up on the bottom of the river. Please no smoking or vaping on board the boat. Please resist the temptation of trying to touch bridges as well. And feel free to have a chat amongst yourselves as you see all sorts of incredible things around the river. I just ask that you keep it to a low volume so that other passengers on the boat can hear me yell out "abandon ship" if we have to do that. If you end up in the water, don't panic. I do actually have a whole boatload of life jackets here on board that I can throw to your rescue, but because it's going to be so hot today, I'm going to suggest you might like to just stand up, walk to the edge. The river on average is about 3 feet deep. Hands up all those from San Antonio. Great, you guys are my fact checkers. When I tell a lie on this trip, I want you to shoot that hand up in the air so fast and qualify what I'm saying with the correct information, okay? So everybody knows that we get the truth out there. Everybody, welcome aboard. It's great to have you here, and I will be telling you about 36 stories as we go around the river today, and I hope you enjoy them. We're starting off outside the second largest shopping centre in San Antonio. It's called Shops at the River Centre behind us, and it was built in 1988 at a cost of $250 million. It has over 1 million square feet of retail space in there. There are 140 places to shop till you drop, 37 places where you can enjoy food or drink, and that includes 6 restaurants that are located down here at Riverwalk level as well. And just to give you an idea of where we are at this point, we are about 1 block away from the Alamo in this location. Well, those in San Antonio back in February will remember we had a pretty wild winter storm come through the area, and it dropped about 6 inches of snow all across the city. We had a layer of ice underneath that, and we had below freezing temperatures for almost a week, and all of that wintry weather really made a mess of the vegetation along the banks of the river, and you'll still see some evidence of that as we go around on our tour. We have about 20,000 varieties of trees and shrubs around the San Antonio Riverwalk, and that includes a whole bunch of fruit trees. Around the river there are lemon trees, orange trees, lime trees, avocado plants, banana plants, fig trees, and pomegranate trees as well. In fact, this is a pomegranate tree, this tree above us on the right-hand side. And as you can see, it came through the storm pretty well. Most of those fruit trees around the river give pretty good fruit throughout any normal year. Well, as we come out from under the bridge, over on the right-hand side of the boat, up on the bank, there is a statue over here. That statue is 8 feet high, and that is the statue of St. Anthony, or as we know him a little better, San Antonio, who gave his name to the city and to the river. And that statue was a gift to the city at the end of the World's Fair that was held here in 1968. It was a gift from the country Portugal. You see, San Antonio is the patron saint of Portugal, and he's also the patron saint of lost things. Every so often they empty parts of the San Antonio Riverwalk in order to clean it out and get things off the bottom of the river that don't belong there. And when they do, they find all sorts of things down there, things like tables and chairs from restaurants. They find plates and silverware, salt and pepper shakers, lots of handbags, purses, wallets, sets of car keys, sunglasses, credit cards, money, electric scooters. Sometimes when they empty out the river, they even find engagement rings on the bottom. And the number one thing they find every time? Very expensive cell phones, folks. So please be careful of your phone around the river. Now up on the right-hand side where I'm pointing, there's a beautiful steeple up there on the hill attached to a very historic church, and that church up there is St. Joseph's Catholic Church. It was built in 1868. Back in the mid-1800s, one of the largest populations that lived here in San Antonio at that time was German, and that church up there was built for German worship. Anyone on board with German heritage? There you go. That church up there, every month, in keeping with that tradition, holds a German service. And that includes an all-male German choir called the San Antonio Liederkranz, who sing in that church at that service every month. Well, before we go underneath the Alamo Street Bridge in front of us, have a look over here on the right-hand side where I'm pointing. Up above us, there is a big orange ribbon-like structure up on top of the bridge, and that is called the Torch of Friendship. Now, that sculpture up there was designed and created by the Mexican artist Sebastian. When Sebastian was interviewed and asked about his artwork, he said he came up with that design thinking about the friendship between United States and Mexico. The Torch of Friendship stands 65 feet high. It weighs 45 tons. It was a gift to the city in 2002. And if you're going through our airport terminal on your travels, keep your eyes open. You might see some more sculptures from Sebastian in our airport terminal building. Well, we're just going to take it nice and slowly here, one boat at a time. We're going to be taking a left-hand turn, and at this point we are actually getting onto the natural San Antonio River. And as we make the turn around to the left, there's a big, tall hotel that will appear in front of us. That is the Hilton Palacio del Rio, the Palace of the River. And this hotel in front of us is actually in the Guinness Book of Records because it was built in a very, very unusual way in 1968. When they built this hotel in front of us, they built the lower 4 stories of the building on site like you would with any normal construction. And that included the elevator shaft in the middle of the building, the swimming pool, the restaurant over here on the left-hand side at river level, and the lounge area up on top of the restaurant. But this hotel on the left has got 496 hotel rooms. Each of those rooms were built at an engineering plant 7 miles outside San Antonio. Once the rooms were finished at the engineering plant, they were put on the back of flatbed trucks and driven in here to the city. A crane was waiting, and the crane would pick up each room one by one, lift it up to the required floor, slide it into place, and stack the hotel rooms on top of each other like Lego blocks. Well, they call that modular construction, and they took a total of 202 working days to build the entire hotel. That's what got them into the Guinness Book of Records. But the amazing thing is that when each of those hotel rooms arrived here from the engineering plant, they arrived ready to go. Carpet on the floors, all the furniture in every room, the beds, the tables, the chairs, the lamps. They had TV sets in the rooms, they had radios, pictures on the walls, towels on the towel rails, they even had soap in the soap dishes. And then those rooms were picked up and stacked up on top of each other, and on a good day, they would load up 35 rooms in that fashion. Well, that's how they built the Hilton Palacio in 1968. We affectionately call the hotel back there the Lego Hotel. I didn't see any hands go up, so that must have been a true story, folks, so there we go. So we're coming up in front of us here to an outdoor theatre. It's called the Artisan River Theatre. Built in 1940, designed by the man we call the father of the Riverwalk. His name is Robert Hugman. And he also designed that beautiful little bridge we're coming up to in front of the boat as well. And I'll be mentioning Robert Hugman's name a few times on the trip. Well, on the left-hand side of the boat, in the amphitheatre, seating for 800 people over there, watching all the river parades go through and all the action on the stage over here on the right-hand side. 5 bronze bells behind the stage represent the 5 missions around San Antonio, one of those being the Alamo. Now, if the stage on the right looks familiar, you may remember it from the movie Miss Congeniality with Sandra Bullock and William Shatner. Well, they shot the pageant scene from that movie right there on that little stage where all the contestants wanted world peace. So if you enjoyed that movie, get it out when you get home, have another look. You'll not only see the stage in the movie, you'll also see the Alamo because they shot a lot of that movie around San Antonio. And the little bridge we just crept under there, that's called Rosita's Bridge, named in honor of a great singer here in San Antonio, Rosita Fernandez. During her lifetime, she performed on that stage back there hundreds of times, and she also sang for popes and for presidents, even singing at Jimmy Carter's inauguration in 1977. And that bridge back there was named in honor of Rosita Fernandez in 1992. Over on the right-hand side, this beautiful sculpture is out front of the Briscoe Western Art Museum. Now, this building on the right was formerly the San Antonio City Library. It became the Art Museum in 2013. Hands up all those who like movies. Okay, I love it. We have plenty of time. We're going to have a movie quiz, folks. Over here on the right-hand side of the boat, right up against the building there is another sculpture of a man on a horse with a rifle raised in the air. Everybody see it? 2-part question. Who is the actor? What is the role he is playing? Sorry, sir? Not Kevin Costner. No, that is John Wayne in his role as Rooster Cogburn. There we go. For all the John Wayne fans, of course, John Wayne financed and starred in the movie The Alamo back in the 1960s, and he actually held the world premiere of that movie right here in San Antonio at a little theatre just outside of town, the Woodlawn Theatre, back in the 1960s. Well, we're coming up to an interesting looking bridge in front of the boat. This bridge was built by the Berlin Bridge Company, and that's Berlin in Connecticut, not in Germany. They actually built 4 bridges for the Riverwalk. This one was in another location on the river for about 30 years until it was decided they needed a bigger bridge in that location for more road traffic. So this bridge was dismantled, moved around the corner on the river and relocated right here, and all of that happened back in 1925. Over on the right-hand side of the boat, underneath this giant cypress tree, there is a little area of land over here, and it's actually a little island here on the right, and it's a heart-shaped island and a very romantic spot on the river. This area here on the right-hand side is known as Marriage Island. Well, there are over 300 weddings performed on that little island there every year. And a couple of Saturdays ago here in town, we had a beautiful day with blue sky and sunshine, much like today. And as I was giving my tours around the river on that Saturday, I counted 8 weddings that were held on that island on the one day. It is a very popular place to get married in San Antonio, also a popular place to propose and renew your vows as well. Well, back in the 1800s, there weren't too many bridges going over the river, and there weren't too many safe places where you could bring wagons and horses across the river as well. But this was a good spot because here it was always pretty shallow back in those days, and there was a mill grinding the grain for the community on the right-hand side, so this part of the river was always referred to as the Old Mill Crossing. Now, the building on our right-hand side, that is the Westin Hotel, built in 1999. One of the many 4.5-star hotels we have here in San Antonio. Meanwhile, the building over on the left-hand side, up above us, this building over here was the tallest structure in San Antonio for about 60 years. And for many years, this building over here on the left was also the biggest or the tallest building west of the Mississippi as well. It's called the Tower Life Building. Well, if you can handle the glare, have a look right up the top of that building on the left there, and underneath the flag, on the corners of the building, you might be able to see the gargoyles hanging off like rainwater spouts right up near the top there. And once you find the gargoyles, turn your attention to the outside wall of the building, and at the first floor level, all the way along the outside of the building, at the first floor, there's a row of faces looking down on us from the outside of that building, 1 story up. Those faces are called grotesque faces. Well, the building was built in 1929. It was built by 2 brothers, the Smith brothers, and they were very superstitious guys. They didn't want to see any bad luck come to their brand new building in 1929. So as they were building it, they installed the gargoyles and the grotesque faces on the building in order to keep bad luck away from their pride and joy, and they thought that was a pretty good plan. But sadly, it didn't work out so well for the Smith brothers. They lost their building in the Great Depression a couple of years after they finished it. But they left us with a great legacy. Have a look back at that building from this angle. Now, a lot of people think with a little bit of imagination, when you look at that building, they can see a very tall ship or ocean liner coming towards us in the shape of that building. You see that there? Now, some people who have a really good imagination when they look at that building can even hear that ship's horn as well. Wow. You guys are good. Haven't been able to do that for a couple of tours, so congratulations. So here we go through a floodgate right here, and at this point we're leaving the natural San Antonio River behind. It's heading down to the left-hand side and going to the Gulf of Mexico, a couple of 100 miles down in that direction. We're heading to the north here. We're turning into a man-made channel. This man-made channel that we're turning into, together with the floodgate that we just passed through, and another floodgate I'll show you up ahead, are part of the flood control system we have in San Antonio. When the floodwaters come down the river from the north in front of us, the Riverwalk and the city can be protected by closing that floodgate behind us and the other one up ahead, and that way it stops any floodwaters going into the city, and they're all sent down the channel behind us to the Gulf of Mexico. So the San Antonio Riverwalk, as pretty as it is, with all the cute little bridges we see and the outdoor theatre, is actually a flood control program. And it is the #1 tourist attraction in Texas. Well, as we come out from under the bridge, once again, I apologise for the glare, but have a look over my shoulder back at this bridge, and you'll see all the padlocks that are on this bridge behind us. And this is called our Lovelock Bridge. Now, when people get married in San Antonio, the custom is they find their way back to the Lovelock Bridge with their better half and a padlock. They write their names, the date on the padlock, they attach it to the bridge, and then they toss the key in the river. And that symbolises eternal and everlasting love. Well, that's been going on since 2012. There are thousands of padlocks on that bridge from couples over the years. Well, over here on the left-hand side of the boat coming up, there's a little sign on the edge of the river in front of us under a tree. I'm going to go past the sign very slowly and have a look between the trees on the left, and way back in the distance there on the left-hand side, you'll catch a glimpse of a very old and historic cathedral back there. That is the San Fernando Cathedral, way back in the distance. And it's one of the oldest cathedrals in the United States. It was built in 1750, still in use to this day. And that area back there is where the first settlement of San Antonio was in the early 1700s. So there is a lot of history in that part of the city, some really great restaurants and markets up there as well. Now that's the natural San Antonio River directly in front of us, and it heads north at this point about 4 miles upstream. And as you can see, people like to take a stroll along the riverbanks there. It's pretty flat on both sides, so it's a good chance to get some exercise, and you get to see more of our historic and beautiful Riverwalk up close and personal. But right now we're going to be taking a right-hand turn, and we're leaving this man-made channel behind, rejoining the natural San Antonio River at this point. Here's the other floodgate that I mentioned that protects the city. When the floodwaters come down the river, they slide this floodgate down. It seals off the river at this point and stops any floodwaters going into the city and causing any damage. Well, the worst flood ever to hit San Antonio occurred almost 100 years ago. It was in September 1921. And in that flood, we are told that the floodwaters were 9 feet over the city streets. Well, there's a city street directly in front of us, that is St. Mary's Street. You imagine 9 feet of water over that bridge, probably to the top of that truck, and you'll get an idea of the volume of water going through here 100 years ago in 1921 before the floodgates were installed. On the right-hand side of the boat, the Esquire Tavern. A very popular spot to sit up on the balcony, enjoy a meal or a drink, watching life on the river go by. The Esquire opened up as a tavern the day after Prohibition was lifted in the United States back in 1933. And then next door to the Esquire, here on the right-hand side, the newest hotel on the Riverwalk. It's the Canopy Hotel. Above us, 22 stories and a rooftop swimming pool up there. The Canopy, only been open for a couple of weeks, brand new on the Riverwalk. We're very excited to welcome a new luxury hotel here in San Antonio. Well, in San Antonio, we're very fortunate that we have a number of historic old theatres around the city that have been lovingly restored and brought back to life. And one of those theatres is called the Aztec Theatre. And as we come out from under the bridge, the Aztec is over here on the right-hand side of the boat, built in 1926. Designed by the same guys who designed the Grauman Chinese Theatre in Los Angeles, where all the footprints and the handprints are. And it was the place to come to in the 1920s if you wanted to see the latest movies from Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, Rudolph Valentino, Mary Pickford. They were all showing here at the Aztec Theatre on the right-hand side. But over the years it fell into a little bit of disrepair. It was closed down, refurbished, and then opened up as a concert venue. Some of the performers that have been there since they opened it include Journey, Styx, ZZ Top, Eddie Money, Dave Chappelle, and Olivia Newton-John. Now this bridge we're about to go under here is called the Robert Hugman Bridge, and it's named in honour of the man we call the father of the Riverwalk, the architect Robert Hugman, who not only designed this beautiful bridge here, he also designed Rosita's Bridge we went under before, and also that cute little outdoor theatre. But if you saw the movie Selena with Jennifer Lopez from the late 1990s, based on the life of the great singer Selena Quintanilla, they shot a lot of that movie right here in San Antonio. And there's a great scene in the movie with J-Lo sitting on that bridge behind us, so we also refer to the bridge as Selena's Bridge. Now the building to our left, this came into being in 1853 as a boys' boarding school. And that school grew and grew till it turned into St. Mary's University Law School. In time, the law school outgrew this location. The campus was closed, moved outside the city. The building was then renovated, and then it opened up as a hotel. First off, La Posada, and now it's known as the Omni La Mansion Hotel here in San Antonio. Well, up in front of the boat on the left-hand side of the river, you'll see a restaurant coming up called Bubba Gum. As we come out from under the bridge, have a look at the building high on the left here, up on top of Bubba Gum. And it looks like the building up here on the left-hand side is actually balancing on one wall up there.
Oh, wow.
There we go. Nobody jump overboard. Have no fear. That building is not going to fall down, I promise. That is the former Nix Hospital, built in 1930. And it holds the honour of being the first air-conditioned hospital in the United States. No longer a hospital though, the building has now been sold and closed. That will be a luxury hotel on the river in years to come. But some of the people who were born in the Nix Hospital back in the day, the legendary entertainer Carol Burnett, who grew up here in San Antonio, and also Colonel Oliver North. Well, this is a very attractive part of the river walk through here. This is known as South Bank, and some really fine restaurants in this stretch through here. There are in fact over 100 restaurants around the San Antonio Riverwalk and the nearby streets. So no matter what sort of food you're looking for, there's every chance you will find it either on the water or close by. Now the building in front of the boat, this is the Hyatt Regency Hotel, and it was built in 1981. When they built this hotel, they kept the height of the building to 16 stories. And that's because on the other side of the hotel, from where we are, sits the Alamo. And nobody wanted a shadow over the Alamo at sunset. So it was calculated if this hotel on the left was kept to 16 stories in height, when the sun sets in the west every afternoon, the Alamo on the other side will never be in shade. And if you've ever heard of a singer by the name of Phil Collins, well, apart from giving us some great music over the years, Phil Collins has another passion in life apart from music, and that happens to be the Alamo. He's even written a book about it. And over the years, Phil Collins has collected hundreds of artifacts from the Alamo worth many millions of dollars, which he has donated back to the Alamo for a future museum. So we have a very high regard of Phil Collins here in San Antonio. Okay, you guys are lucky. You've got a captain with eagle eyes. We're not going to try and disturb this guy back here, but I just want to show you something. Hang on a sec. Be patient. And people ask me about what sort of life we have in the river. And I mentioned a couple of different kinds of fish that we have. We have all sorts of different kinds of fish in the river. And we also have snakes. Over here on the left-hand side, folks, look under here, look, there he is. He knows we've seen him. There he is, watching before he disappears. I think that's a water moccasin. You know, and I see people sitting on the edge of the river here with their kids dangling their feet in the river all the time, and I suggest to them they might like to pull their toes out of the river before someone takes one off. So there you go. He's had enough, he's going into his little hole there. There you go, not something you see every day. So this building on the right-hand side, this is the Casino Club building. It was built in 1927. And up on top, apartments up on top there, and one of the famous residents who lived in those apartments up on the right-hand side, the author Alex Haley. He lived here in San Antonio for a number of years, and he really enjoyed his time here. So much so, he encouraged his good friend Maya Angelou to come and live in San Antonio as well, which she did. And she fell in love with the city and the river, just like Alex Haley. Now this part of the river through here, this is always very busy, very popular. This is known as River Square. Lots of restaurants here, as you can see, either side of the river, and all sorts of fabulous dining experiences. And it's also a part of the river where oftentimes you might get to hear mariachi bands as well. So not only the great food, but the great music that goes along with it. Before we go under the bridge in front of us, there's a building coming up on the right-hand side with a curved balcony. Now on the front of the balcony here on the right, it says Hugman Architect. I've mentioned the name Robert Hugman a few times on the trip. He's the man we call the father of the Riverwalk, the architect who designed the arch bridges and that beautiful little outdoor theatre we went through. Well, this building over here on the right-hand side of the boat, with his name on the front, was his actual architect's office back in the 1940s when the Riverwalk was being designed and in its infancy. And there's a bust of Robert Hugman near the staircase. and a little bit of a storyboard about the San Antonio Riverwalk with Robert Huckman's involvement with its design. Well, we're coming up to a restaurant in front of the boat with these colourful umbrellas on the right-hand side. And this is called Casa Rio. And it holds the honour of being the first restaurant to ever open on the San Antonio Riverwalk. It opened up in 1946. Back in those days, you could come in here to Casa Rio. While you were waiting for your meal to be prepared, you could take a gondola ride up and down the river where we are right here. And then you could hop ashore when your meal had arrived at the table. That gave rise to San Antonio's nickname back in the day, which was American Venice. And in front of us, there's another view of the Lego Hotel, the big tall hotel there that was built room by room, with those rooms lifted up one by one and stacked up on top of each other. But here we're taking a left-hand turn, and we're leaving the natural San Antonio River. We've turned into a man-made channel, which was completed in 1968. And that was a big year for San Antonio. That was the year the World's Fair came to town. It was called Hemisphere, and it brought 7 million people to the city to be a part of the World's Fair. So there was a need for a better transport system to get those people around the city, and also to get them closer to the World's Fair, which was located underneath the Tower of the Americas. So this channel was completed at a cost of $13 million, and it extended the Riverwalk a little further into this part of the city and allowed easier access to the World's Fair under the tower. Now the building on our left, the Chamber of Commerce building, 4 flags out the front. The United States flag, of course, on the left. Next to that, the Texas flag. The flag on the other end, the Chamber of Commerce flag. The red, white and blue flag in the middle, the San Antonio flag with the Alamo on that flag. Their role is to attract and promote business here in the city. And back in 1985, there were plans for a new hotel here in the city, but there was a big problem. There was already a hotel sitting on the site where they wanted to build a new one. The hotel that was already there, a very historic hotel, it was called the Fairmount Hotel. And it had been on that spot since 1906. And nobody wanted to see the Fairmount destroyed because it had such great heritage value. So they had a real problem on their hands as to what to do. A team of engineers came in with their advice. They said, leave it to us. So in March of 1985, the engineers got to work. They jacked up the 3-story, 1,600-ton Fairmount Hotel. They loaded the entire hotel onto the back of 36 giant dollies. And then they proceeded to tow the hotel through the streets of San Antonio for a distance of half a mile to another location. Well, that half-mile journey of the hotel through the streets took 6 days to complete because they were travelling at less than 1 mile an hour. But they eventually got the Fairmount Hotel to where they wanted it. They put it down. It's still there to this day. And the hotel they built in its place in 1985 is that white building in front of the boat. That is the Marriott Hotel. And I mentioned that the World's Fair came to town, and when it did, the symbol of the World's Fair and the centre of all the action was the Tower of the Americas. And over on the right-hand side of the boat where I'm pointing, up between the trees, there is a big, tall, circular tower. The Tower of the Americas, 750 feet high. It has an observation deck at the top. There's also a revolving restaurant up there called the Chart House, which turns around once every hour and offers panoramic views of the city. A great place to be when the lights come on in the afternoon. Well folks, I didn't get lost, that's a miracle. We found our way back. Hope you enjoyed the trip around the river, saw some interesting things, that's for sure, and hope you found out something new about San Antonio that you didn't know a little while ago. Now as we come into dock, a couple of favours, please remain seated while I tie up the boat. I'll let you know when it's safe to stand up. Also, before you leave, could you please check around, make sure you take all of your personal belongings with you. Now, if you discover that you've left something behind on the boat, I don't want you to panic. You'll be able to retrieve it tomorrow online. Just go to ebay.com, you'll find it there at a very low and attractive starting price. And folks, I hope you had a good time on the tour. If you did, tips are allowed, more than welcome, gratefully received. I'm going to leave my little tip jar back here. It's an Aussie tip jar. It's got a koala on one side, kangaroo on the other, and the Tassie Devil on the other side there. So I hope you enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. Great to be with you and share some stories. My name is Captain Stu, and hopefully we'll see each other on the river again in the near future. Thanks everybody, have a great day.